Welcome to the Hobby Jogger podcast, where elite athletes and ham and eggers lace up their stories. We explore the common ground that running creates, from the world-class runner to the hobbyist hitting the pavement, trail, or treadmill. Expect a blend of inspiration, laughter, and the shared joy that makes every step count. Join us on this journey where every run is a story worth sharing. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Hobby Jogger and Friends. Today, I'm joined by my co-host with the most, Mr. Rob Myers. Rob, how are you?
I'm doing well. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Looking forward to Grindstone this weekend, huh?
Yeah, man. Can't wait.
Sweet.
We're leaving here shortly in the camper. Gonna make a couple stops along the way. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. Weather looks great.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to it. Today, we are joined by our producer, Mr. David Moore. David, how are you today?
Doing great, Casey. Happy to be on this side of the microphone with you guys this week. Disappointed I have to miss you guys in Grindstone, but looking forward to hearing the stories.
I saw there's still some charity bibs left if you're interested.
Pre-existing event. I think not one, but two weddings to attend that day. So
Double wedding day. That's a lot.
We'll definitely miss you around mile 20, 25, limping, go across the finish line. Nice to turn around and know that you're there with us, but you'll be there in spirit.
I'll be following along in spirit with you guys.
Drinking a beer for us, I imagine, at the wedding. Well, that's good. And had a cool guest on last week, Dr. Bonnie Wilder. Excellent. Ton of great information. Myself coming off of an injury, went through some of her videos and, kind of got through it pretty quick. The SI joint had 3 weeks off due to that. David, I know you've had some injuries.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it was, I think as producer, our disclaimer here first, if you want to hear like accurate and helpful information, I would say listen to Dr. Bonnie last week. This week, shared some injuries, and I think what we've each done to recover from those, and maybe how they happened to begin with. Yeah, I've had several of those. I think Bonnie talked on like the main 5 or main 6. I've certainly had my share. I've had IT band, plantar fasciitis, had a stress fracture, runner's knee, and more ankle rolls than I think I can count at this point. So it was funny thinking through those today, thinking back. I would say over my 8-9 year running career has been mostly healthy, maybe 80%, 90% of the time healthy, but surprising to think back and how many injuries I've had myself and experienced.
You had to deal with some plantar fasciitis. What ways did you go about treating it?
Yeah, so Casey, that was a tough injury that I think came on from overuse and just out of the blue started hurting. The pain, the telltale symptoms that Dr. Bonnie had shared out of bed in the morning, I would say is the most excruciating. And every morning it's, people relate it to hopping out of bed into a box of gravel. And it really feels that way. My pain was directly on the heel and did a lot of things. I think I did some exercises for it and just some general stretching and maybe some band work. But really the trick, the secret thing that got me through that, I don't know how much of a secret it is, but nobody had told me and I didn't see much online about it, but it worked immediately. There's something called, I want to say it's a Strasbourg sock, and you sleep in the thing and it's horrible to sleep. So you sleep terribly in it. But in the morning, essentially my understanding is that pain in the morning in the heel is because as your foot rests, your fascia or your tendons are most certainly saying that wrong, but everything kind of heals up on itself. So this sock essentially would have you sleep and it ties your toes kind of up in the air. And it was within a couple of nights, within a week, like fully healed. If I, feel it coming back, I throw that sock on, and again, horrible to wear, uncomfortable to sleep. You lose sleep, but you wake up in the morning and your heel doesn't hurt, and you use it for a few days in succession, and it entirely took away the issues I was having there. So if you're struggling with planners yourself, which can be a long-term thing, give it a shot.
Yeah, that's something I know I've seen a lot of people deal with that haven't really found a good, not cure, but treatment for it. So that's something definitely need to keep in the back of my mind for if it ever strikes me, I can always borrow your sock, David.
Strasbourg sock, that's it. You wouldn't want to run in it. It's got some straps and Velcro and everything else hanging off of it, but it works.
It's really good when someone as well spoken and clear as Bonnie can define to us, the layman's, what the injuries are. Like I'm going into it, I much to the chagrin of you, I don't do a whole lot of research. So I wasn't aware of, what some of those injuries actually were, what they entailed. But thankfully, well, that's why we do the show, is to have someone like Dr. Bonnie on to explain to Rob and I what it is that we don't know. Right, Rob?
Yeah. And you could tell she knew what she was talking about. I mean, she was using words I've never heard before. So that's how I know she's smart.
I appreciated Dr. Bonnie that there was like no tone or note of condescending like at all. It was just, this is what they are, and like encourage runners like, hey, take a couple weeks. We said, hey, when should a runner go to the doctor? And it was, take a couple weeks, do your, I'm sure all of us do, like our Googling and self-diagnosing and trying what we find on the internet there. But it seemed like she acknowledged, hey, that's going to happen, but if that doesn't work out, come in and see a doctor of physical therapy, and they may be able to guide you in the right direction better than our searches on Google can.
Yeah. Digging into IT band syndrome, that was my favorite because that was by far my worst injury. I mean, it took 6-9 months, very painful. You think you're healed from it, but it comes back all the time and you never know when it's going to come back. And plus we learned that the IT band is actually a ligament. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I actually, if you would have asked me before we went on with her, I would have said it's a muscle. I would not have known that it was a ligament.
No, I was surprised.
Thought it was like a muscle that just tightens up, and we did learn you don't roll out ligaments. That makes sense, I guess, in hindsight. But yeah, don't roll out your ligaments. So learn that from Dr. Bonnie, who would be a tremendous educator, the way that she disseminates information. So
yeah, so talking on the IT band, that was when I had that was one of the first things I struggled with in my running career, which started later in life. But I kind of knew what it was, and that I forget what the muscle TFL or the muscle, I always call them the hip adductor muscles, that I knew I had to do those lateral leg raises, and same as Rock, goes away and comes back and feels good with rest for a couple weeks, and then you get out 4 or 5 miles on a run, and there's just that pain again. I think probably horrible advice I'll share here, but the one thing that I felt actually helped was when I just like focused on the pain and ran in a way that like caused more pain. And I think part of that is there was so much focus on gait that Dr. Bonnie kept going back to gait, like a common thing in injuries. If your gait is wrong, everything's wrong. I think what I had going on was a cycle of like my IT band hurt. It changed my gait because I would favor my hurt leg to where it wouldn't be as painful when I was running. And it finally, I think, took a realization of, okay, like the more I try and avoid this pain, the worse the problem's going to be because it's changing my gait. So it was finally just, okay, I'm going to go out and run, and I'm going to run in a way that it's going to hurt on this IT, but it's going to be as close as I can try and be to like a natural, proper gait. And it seemed when I started doing that, again, maybe coincidence, and we'll see if Dr. Bonnie follows up and says, stop giving horrible advice. But that really seemed to help me.
Did you try any of the weird contraptions that you're supposed to put right above your knee? I know I had a couple of those. Yeah, it didn't seem to do anything at all.
Yeah, I had the band, the strap, all of those. As far as curing it or helping it or making it go away long term, I don't know that it did. Maybe there was a little more comfort just kind of strapping down some pressure on that point that was causing pain.
What about you, Casey? IT band?
good question, Rob. And yeah, I think that the gait is so important. Dr. Bonnie, not a big fan of Hokas. Learned that. So little disappointing to me and all the other Hoka heads, but
Brought a tear to my eye.
yeah,
Very sad.
yeah, but it makes sense in just learning how important gait is to your soundness and health is something to concentrate on, and maybe not run as much. Like, one thing I took away from it is maybe I won't run as much through injuries, and maybe get on the bike till they're healed so that I'm not creating a second problem from the first problem. So yeah, always good to learn.
Yeah, I think the rest is important. So what another injury I had, and we actually didn't talk about it with Dr. Bonnie, and I don't know if there's any other way to help it but from rest. I had a stress fracture that was actually like non-running related. I had gone snowboarding, and I'm not a great snowboarder, and went straight down a Black Diamond Hill and turned sideways and fell and hit, and didn't feel that I was hurt, didn't feel anything, but came back and in a run, could feel something was wrong, and he was out on a long run, and it just got worse and worse to what I realized was a stress fracture. And I think that's one that, like, you have no other choice, right? Like, runners like to run through injury, but a fracture or stress fracture of that kind, the only solution is time.
Yeah. And also, I'd probably recommend not going down Black Diamonds if you're a self-admitted not good snowboarder.
Yeah, that's number one. Yeah. Stay away from the Black Diamond.
Once in a lifetime lesson learned, I hope.
Yeah, risk management sometimes is good injury prevention. So
Yeah. The other thing we discussed was the zero drop shoes and the barefoot shoes. And I know I personally went through that. Big ultra fan for years and years and years. I still have a ton of them sitting in my closet. And to hear that the move that I made, the move from zero drop to 4 or 5 millimeter drop, was the right thing. Sounds like I need to go to like a 10 or a 14, but it was gigantic as far as alleviating a lot of the cramping that I'm getting in my calves. Now, one thing that's interesting is it's starting to come back a little bit. So I think she was 100% right. And that 4 or 5 millimeter drop is not enough. I need to get up to, 8, 10, 12 maybe. But that was interesting, because that was something I did on my own, not knowing what the results would be. And to have someone, at her level confirm what I did, I was pretty happy to hear that. So, and it actually did help.
It was interesting. So Bonnie, certainly picked a couple of her favorites, right? If I recall, I think it was Brooks and Saucony. I think Dr. Bonnie's primarily a road runner, but I've seen I know, Rob, you were a ultra guy, I think converted to Hoka guy at this point. I've even almost gone the opposite way. I was from ever since I started trail running, I was in Hokas, and just recently, the last year, it's been more ultras, the zero drop. And I think that started, I had a pretty severe ankle sprain about a year ago now, and I was off completely for 3-4 weeks. And then, as I started getting back into training, for whatever reason, the foot and ankle just felt more comfortable in the ultra. I don't know if it was the closer to the ground or the wider toe box, or maybe just kept me more on my toes rather than my midfoot, and feeling that it could roll again. But still, even to this day, I ran in a new pair of Hokas yesterday and just didn't feel the same amount of comfort. Now, partly maybe I'd just have to retrain into a new pair of shoes or back into the Hokas. But, Dr. Bonnie was talking, and, just how different shoes for different people. And, in my own experience, how it feels better at times dealing with injuries, having a different shoe on than maybe I used to always run in.
I think you're 100% right. And I agree when it comes to rolling your ankle, right? I think with the ultras, the one thing I miss is just being closer to the ground and really feeling the terrain. And I think it does help you avoid rolling your ankle, because that was the first thing I noticed when I went to, 4 or 5 millimeter drop shoe. I just felt like my ankles were a little less stable. I don't know. Maybe it was because I ran in the ultras for so many years, and now I'm used to it. I don't notice it, but that was the first thing I noticed. It's just my ankles didn't have the same stability in the Hokas that they did in the ultras. But you can also get used to just about anything. That's the other thing it proved to me.
yeah, I mean, I have a pair of shoes that I wear, like Laurel Highlands type rocky, super technical, and basically my ankle's on the ground, and that's just the proper shoe for it. So I think, also wearing just proper shoes for proper surfaces is,
Yep.
Maybe it's not a Swiss Army knife shoe. It's, well, maybe you should wear a smaller stack height or whatever for certain different terrains is also a good way to probably go at it as well. Yeah, another thing is the talk we had on super shoes. Rob and I are running the Grindstone 50k. I will have the Tecton X3s on at Grindstone, but I don't run in them ever outside of something like that. Also, I would never actually, I wouldn't buy $275 shoes either. They were a gift. So that's why I'm wearing them. What shoe are you wearing for the Grindstone, Rob?
I don't know. I'm on the fence. I can promise it'll be a Hoka. Not sure which one that I'm going to bring. Probably the Speed Goats.
Did you get a pair of the sixes or are they the fives?
They're the fives.
Fives? Still rocking the fives. I like those.
Still rocking the fives.
Yep. Hey,
I can't upgrade if there's still tread. Like if it's not time to throw them in the trash, I'm not going to upgrade. Now I'll buy a different model for sure, but I typically don't own two of the exact same pair of shoes.
The Speed Goat is a rare exception to that for me. I have two pairs of the Speed Goat fives. I really liked them. And I think there were a couple years between releases. So put a lot of miles on both pairs and really liked them. And I might actually buy a bike from, I know Dick's is running a special on pretty cheap Speed Goat 5. So I have no problem wearing last year's model of shoes ever.
Same.
For any reason. They go on discount, we buy them up. So, hey, I like it. But yeah, Grindstone will be fun. It is a fast course. It's a very fast 50K course. I know there's 5,000 feet of elevation, but it's all very runnable. There is some roads. It's like 8 miles of roads, I think.
Was it not technical at all? There were a couple sections that were technical.
No,
okay.
There was one section, if I remember correctly, from like mile 8 to 9 that was a little bit rocky, but I thought it was going to be East Coast rocky, very much like Laurel Highlands trails, and it was not at all. It was all one part's like a nice buffed out mountain bike trail, which is always good. You got the Sonic the Hedgehog berms. The one climb was not that steep, but it was really long, and then it gets steep. But that might have been the other technical part. But all the downhills were very runnable and very smooth. So
yeah, it looked like it was like a few miles of road. Most of it was trail.
Yeah, there's some back service roads in there as well. So yeah, it'll be fast. It'll be fun. It'll get us back to the beer quicker, hopefully.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
That's what matters. Also looking forward, we've got another cool episode coming up.
Yes, we do.
Next week will be released. Mr. DJ Fox and Joshua Reed just set a big fastest known time.
Yeah. It was very cool. Very cool. Yeah. DJ's something else, man. The guy's superhuman.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you could just tell when he gets a goal, he's going to go after it, and he's just not going to stop. Like you could see that it, not to give too much into the episode because we do want people to listen to it, but when he failed the first attempt, it really drove him and his mindset for the second attempt. So pretty cool to go through that story with him of persevering through a failure and just kind of, figuring it out and grinding out the second one.
Yeah. Those guys that are wired for those multi-day races. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, Casey, how was, mile 15 or mile 20 for 50K. But when you're gone for multiple days and you're out there trying to sleep, trying to keep your nutrition right, and just all the factors that we think about over the course of 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, but you have to do it over a week. I mean, it's just insane. The chances for something to go wrong is just so much higher.
Yeah. I mean, even if you look at the difference between a 50K and a 100-mile of what could go wrong. Now you want to extrapolate that out into 7 days of wilderness in the Colorado back mountains. And there's a lot of time, a lot of distance for things to go wrong. So yeah, really good episode with DJ and Josh. So glad they could make some time for us, and look forward to that coming out and seeing what people think about it.
As far as enthusiasm from guests, that was one, both DJ and Joshua, and rightfully so, but the adventure they must have had out on, 7 days, even for the crew. We'll hear more about it next week, but I think they had a 13-person crew that went with them and spent this week, and, out there days and nights, sunshine, rain, everything you hit through the Western mountains. I mean, it was epic.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun one.
there's a lot of information in there as well. It's one of our longer episodes, I believe. And yeah, there's a lot. We probably could have done 2 or 3 episodes on the whole experience. So we kind of got a condensed version from them, but yeah, awesome episode, and look forward to seeing how people like it.
To your point, we definitely could have made that a 3-part episode. I mean, the level of detail that they go into, and if you think about it, I mean, you have 7 days worth of detail. And most of the guests we've had, they're talking about one race, even if it's a 100-miler, and it's a day and a half, approaching 2 days. It's just, there's a lot to unpack. So I think everyone's going to enjoy it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hobby Jogger and Friends. Thank you to Mr. David Moore for taking time out of your production duties to join us. Thank you very much, David.
Yeah, absolutely. Great again to join on this side with you guys. Hopefully I'll have an invite back.
Rob, thanks for being here, and I will see you in a few days.
Yeah, man. We'll see you Thursday.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Hobby Jogger. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. And if you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support keeps us moving forward. Until next time, keep those feet moving and enjoy the mile.